There are stories that not only tell something, but invite us to question everything. And among these stories, few are as intriguing as that of a man who dared to explore the limits of the human mind. Jacobo Greenberg was not just a scientist, he was an explorer of invisible worlds, a man who believed that reality was not a fixed stage, but a living creation shaped by consciousness. To him, the mind was not merely a tool, but the very stage upon which the universe reveals itself. Born in 1946 in Mexico, Jacobo grew up fascinated by the mystery of existence. Since childhood, he wondered what lay behind what we call reality. While others limited themselves to observing the world, he wanted to understand what made it possible. This curiosity led him to psychology and later to neuroscience. But what truly drove Greenberg was something greater, the conviction that the human mind concealed secrets that science had yet to decipher. Imagine for a moment that everything you see, people, the sky, the passing of time, is not an external product, but a projection of your own consciousness. What if reality were like a living mirror, reflecting what we think and feel? This was the provocation that guided Jacobo Greenberg's life. He believed that we live inside a holographic matrix, an immense web of information and energy, where each of us acts as the creator of our own reality. This vision placed him in dangerous territory for traditional science, but fascinating for those who sought meaning beyond appearances. In his work, Greenberg claimed that every thought has real weight, capable of interacting with the fabric of space-time. He saw consciousness as an active force and a vibrant field connecting all things. And it was this idea that the human mind is a creative agent that turned his research into an almost spiritual journey. For him, understanding the brain was only the first step. The real challenge was to understand what the brain revealed about the nature of the universe itself. For years, Greenberg conducted bold experiments. In silent laboratories, he connected electrodes to human brains, trying to capture the invisible, the electrical patterns that might contain the secret dialogue between mind and matter. He didn't seek to prove the impossible, but to reveal what had always been before us, and that, out of distraction, we failed to notice that thought is energy, and all energy creates form. To explain this process, he developed the theory of the neuronal field. According to Greenberg, the brain does not merely interpret the world, it creates it. The reality we perceive would be the result of a constant interaction between our neurons and a universal energetic field, something like a cosmic network where everything is interconnected. This theory, inspired by quantum physics, suggested that our consciousness is capable of shaping the very universe, acting as both transmitter and receiver of information. Each idea, each emotion, each intention would be like a wave cast into this field, producing subtle but real effects on the structure of reality. This perspective completely transformed the way we understand the human being. From simple observers, we became co-creators of existence. And for Greenberg, this was not merely philosophy, it was science in expansion. He viewed the brain as an antenna, tuning ourselves to the universal field. In this alignment, he said, the mind becomes a creator, and the impossible ceases to exist. As his research progressed, Jacobo Greenberg began to realize that the human brain was more than just a set of electrical connections. To him, the brain was a kind of living bridge, a transmitter between worlds, the material and the invisible. In every synapse, he saw the reflection of something much greater, a silent dialogue between consciousness and the universe. He believed that every thought, every emotion, was like a small pulse of energy that could spread through the fabric of space, subtly altering the reality around it. This perception led him to create a revolutionary concept, the lattice, a vibrational field, an invisible, energetic structure that permeates everything: space, time, matter, and mind. The lattice, he said, was the hidden foundation of the universe, the invisible stage where all events intertwine. Greenberg described this field as an immense, living web of information, pulsating, sensitive to the variations of human consciousness. When someone enters a deep state of mental coherence, an absolute inner silence, this web responds. He believed that in this state, the mind aligns with the rhythm of the universe. It is as if two strings vibrate in unison, one of individual consciousness and one of the cosmos. And when this harmony is reached, he said, the impossible begins to become possible. Thought becomes a creative force. Imagination turns into a tool of transformation. The mind ceases to be a spectator and becomes an artist, painting the canvas of reality. It was from this vision that Jacobo Greenberg coined the word synergy. For him, synergy was the fusion between energy and consciousness, the union of the mind with the universal field. It was a state in which human beings awaken to the fact that they have never been separate from the whole, but are an extension of it. In these moments of profound harmony, the individual doesn't merely think, they feel, perceive, and participate in creation. Greenberg described this state as a form of scientific enlightenment, a point at which the brain ceases to be merely biology and becomes an instrument of reality itself. During his travels through Mexico, Greenberg sought to understand how ancient spiritual traditions had already intuited what he was trying to measure through science. In the mountains, he met shamans and healers who spoke to nature as if it had a voice. He witnessed rituals in which men and women entered trances and seemed to see beyond the visible, touching dimensions that defy logic. Some appeared to manipulate the energy of the environment with simple gestures. Others reported experiences of healing from a distance. While modern science saw superstition, Greenberg saw a forgotten language, an ancestral way of accessing the lattice. These shamans, he said, had learned to communicate with cosmic consciousness. Over generations, they had developed techniques to alter the brain's vibrational state and connect with the universal field. Greenberg called them engineers of the mind, pioneers who had intuitively discovered what physics and neuroscience were only beginning to explore. This expanded vision of the human mind turned Greenberg into a paradoxical figure, loved by some, ridiculed by others. Many colleagues considered him a visionary, someone decades ahead of his time. Others saw him as a dreamer who mixed science with mysticism. But he was undeterred. He believed that true science is born from the courage to doubt, and that the fear of crossing boundaries is knowledge's greatest enemy. In his laboratories, far from the public eye, Jacobo conducted experiments that seemed taken from a science fiction movie. One of the most intriguing was the transferred potential experiment. He proposed that two human brains could connect beyond the senses, synchronizing their electrical activity, even when separated by distance and physical isolation. To test this hypothesis, he placed volunteers in separate rooms, isolated by barriers blocking any electromagnetic or auditory signals. While one participant received visual stimuli, light flashes, brief sounds, projected images, the other remained silent, in darkness, simply breathing. The measurements showed something that left Greenberg's assistants speechless. The brains reacted almost simultaneously. Similar electrical wave patterns appeared, as if one mind had responded to the stimulus that only the other had received. It was as though an invisible thread connected the two, a mental echo traveling through space without the need for words or signals. Greenberg linked this phenomenon to the EPR paradox of quantum physics, the famous entanglement, where two particles, even when separated by great distances, remain instantly connected. He suggested that our mind could function in the same way, that consciousness was, in essence, a non-local field. This meant that our thoughts and emotions are not confined within the brain, but spread through the field, influencing and being influenced by other minds. This hypothesis both fascinated him and unsettled him. If every emotion reverberates through the field, then what we call reality might be nothing more than the collective reflection of billions of consciousnesses vibrating together. Greenberg believed that understanding this was an essential step for human evolution. True change, he said, would not come from machines or technological revolutions, but from a leap in consciousness. Humanity, he believed, needed to awaken to the responsibility of its own thoughts. Because if everything is connected, every emotion is a creative force, every intention is a seed that the universe receives, and every mind, aware of this, becomes capable of transforming its own destiny. Perhaps this was the most profound, and at the same time, the most dangerous message of his ideas. The power lies within us. Not in institutions, not in governments, not in distant gods, but in the awakened human consciousness. As Jacobo Greenberg delved deeper into his discoveries, his journey became increasingly solitary. He spoke of a world that few could comprehend, a world where the mind shapes matter, where thought creates form, and where consciousness is the force that sustains the universe. For him, reality was not something fixed, but a dance between energy and perception. The observer, he said, is the true creator, and understanding that would be the most revolutionary step humanity could ever take. But on December 8, 1994, that dance was interrupted. Greenberg mysteriously disappeared, leaving behind only his manuscripts, his equipment, and a sense of emptiness that echoed throughout the scientific community. His house was in order, as if he had simply stood up and walked out of the reality we knew. No trace, no clue, only silence. A silence that paradoxically seemed to contain all the answers he had sought. Over time, Greenberg's disappearance became part of his own myth. Some said he had been the victim of conspiracies. Others believed he had been kidnapped by agencies interested in his theories. But there were also those who claimed he had achieved the impossible, transcending his own theory. Crossing the threshold of the lattice and merging with the universal field he had studied so deeply. And perhaps, for those who believed in his ideas, that hypothesis wasn't merely poetic, it was plausible. The mystery of his disappearance ended up reflecting the very essence of his message. Greenberg always asserted that reality is a projection of consciousness, and in a way, his physical absence only reinforced his symbolic presence. He ceased to be just a man and became an idea, a living reminder that the power that creates the universe may be dormant within each of us. Decades have passed, yet Greenberg's words continue to echo in universities, documentaries, spiritual retreats, and alternative laboratories. His thought inspired a new generation of researchers, psychologists, and physicists who seek to understand the nature of consciousness. Many now attempt, with advanced technology, to detect what he once intuited with the sensitivity of the mind, that reality is a dynamic phenomenon, a web of subtle interactions between observer and observed. And what if he was right? What if every thought truly leaves an invisible mark on the universe? What if, by changing the way we perceive, we are also changing the world itself? These questions continue to resonate, not only in scientific circles, but within us all, because deep down, what Greenberg left us was not just a theory, but a mirror that forces us to look within and recognize that the power to create begins in the mind, and that the mind is the most powerful instrument in the cosmos. Perhaps Jacobo Greenberg did not disappear. Perhaps he became part of the very field he described, dissolving into the consciousness that unites everything and everyone. Perhaps he reached the point where the observer and the observed merge, where the mind ceases to seek and simply is. The legacy he left us is an invitation, a silent call to expand our perception, to realize that we are more than bodies, more than stories, more than fleeting thoughts. We are conscious energy exploring itself. And when we awaken to that truth, we stop being victims of chance and become creators of reality. So as this journey ends, perhaps the true experiment is this: observe your own thoughts. Feel the space between one and another, and notice that in that space, there is a silent force, the same force that moves galaxies, that vibrates in the stars, and that pulses within your chest. It is consciousness. It is you. And that is where the universe begins. If this story has touched you in any way, allow yourself to go beyond curiosity. Allow yourself to explore what exists within your own mind, because, as Jacobo Greenberg used to say, reality is what you are capable of perceiving. And perhaps by expanding your perception, you will discover that the world changes with you.